So here we have the RSU 68 website guidelines. This is section G, copyright. Number 1, appropriate permission will be obtained before any copyrighted or trademarked material is used on the website. No copyrighted material may be reproduced, transmitted, or stored on RSU 68's website without obtaining permission from the copyright owner. Number 2, this one's important. Students shall retain copyright on materials they create. Number 3, an appropriate copyright notice will appear with all copyrighted material published on the website, and this can't be just any copyrighted material. It has to fall within fair use guidelines, which we'll talk about in a minute. And number 4, except for the above exceptions, all web pages and content on the website are the property and owned by RSU 68. RSU 68's, here's a couple of pieces from the Student Computer and Internet Use Rules. A couple of things that are expressly prohibited both for students and for staff. Number 3, violating copyrights or software licenses. Students, and I would also say staff, may not copy, download, or share any type of copyrighted materials, including music or films, without the owner's permission, or copy or download software without the express authorization of the technology coordinator. Unauthorized copying of software is illegal and may subject the copier to substantial civil and criminal penalties. The school unit assumes no responsibility for copyright or licensing violation by students. And we already talked about teachers are also responsible for paying attention to making sure about copyright compliance. So it's important for teachers to know that they are not violating copyright and always go through the technology coordinator when wondering about software or making sure that they have appropriate licensing. Also, number 4, plagiarism. Students, and again, and staff, may not represent as their own work any materials obtained on the internet, such as term papers, articles, music, etc. When internet sources are used in student work, the author, publisher, and website must be identified. This also holds true for staff. For example, as teachers, we look for materials we want to use in our classroom, and although most of the educational materials are there for educators to use, some we have to pay for, and others are, complimentary. We don't have to pay for them. If we use them, we still need to cite them, whether we're using a part of them or whether we're using the whole thing. And it's important as teachers to take the responsibility and understand where our responsibility lies. So what we can do, what we can use, and what we can't use. And basically, if it's not ours, we have to cite it if we use it. Then we also have an RSU 68 Employee Copyright Compliance Acknowledgement. This is a document that goes on to show some examples of how copyright infringement might occur and what the financial and legal consequences might be. So it's important that if staff do happen to have any graphics or media that aren't licensed for publication, that they be removed right away. And it's important for teachers to understand that by simply downloading a pirated copy of a copyrighted work, like a movie or a TV series, the user on our network and our school system can both be held liable for damages by the owner of the creative work, so of the copyrighted work. It's important to understand fair use provisions, which we're going to talk about next, and it's also important to be educated to inform students on how they can be within copyright guidelines. Just the other day, my students had seen an image on something that came home went to them from the school, and they said, "Hey, how come the school can use that image, but we can't?" And I had to explain to them that our school is licensed. There's licensing for certain images that may go home on documents and things, but not for them to just use freely within their pieces. So it's really important for us to inform students what they can and can't do. All right. So let's talk about fair use. What is it? Is it okay to use something or not okay? So here are the fair use guidelines. First of all, purpose. Second of all, brevity. Third of all, spontaneity. And fourth, cumulative effect. And in order for it to be considered fair use, it must meet all four of these guidelines. First of all, purpose. So in our case, the purpose is educational, and it's to teach. We do that here in RSU 68. There are some other cases where fair use, where the purpose would be acceptable. Definitely in something where the person teaching it was not earning a profit. That's one of the biggest things. We can't be earning money off this. We have to be using it for some sort of teaching purposes, not profit purposes. The second qualifier is brevity, and this has to do with the amount. So the three key things that we can look at are poems, less than 250 words, or 1 to 2 pages, whole or excerpts can be used. Articles, stories, or essays of less than 2,500 words can be used. Also, one chart, graph, diagram, drawing, cartoon, picture per book can be copied. Next is spontaneity. So in this case, the teacher finds materials to use for class and wants to use the materials soon. Too soon to reasonably be able to ask for permission. That could take months or really a long time, even years, I suppose. And by that time, the time is gone, the kids are gone, and it's a whole new scenario and a whole new whole new set of materials. So for teachers, we plan, but it would be hard for us to plan months and months and months out whether or not we could use something that might be copyrighted. And the last qualifier here is cumulative effect. So we can't reuse copies for another class. If we've got the copies, we're really supposed to get rid of them, and then for another class, we do something different. If we need the copies, we just use them for one class. We can't use more than one story, poem, article, or excerpt from the same author. We can't make multiple copies of stories, poems, etc. more than 9 times per class. So, and this is talking about copying them. Here are a few more can'ts. We can't copy consumables, like workbooks, text booklets, or coloring books, or I would add to that activity books, anything that is supposed to be used within the book, and if we were to make copies of it, we would be in violation of copyright. We can't copy something in order to take the place of buying more materials. And we can't use copied items repeatedly from class to class. So they should be used with one class and then be done with them. Also, if it doesn't fall within fair use guidelines, what do? You have to buy it, or you get permission to use it. Or there is one other thing that you can do, which is to create your own content. And as teachers, we are very creative. We do a lot of our own creating. And if we work to create our own content, then that content is copyrighted by us. In which case, we are free to use it as much as we want, and we're free to publish it as much as we want, because it's ours. So this is an exciting alternative to worrying about fair use or copyright violation, to being able to create our own content. So with that, today we looked at copyright in schools, and again, the information in this presentation came from the book called Maine School Law by Bruce W. Smith, Ann S. Chapman, and Harry R. Pringle, 5th edition, 2014, copyright Drummond, Woodson, and McMahon. And I hope this has been informative, and I hope it helps teachers know what they can do and and how they can take responsibility for making sure there's copyright compliance within their classrooms and within our instruction. Thank you.